and welcome to the Polyhedron Collidercast with a special episode where we'll be looking at Gen Con.
Woohoo!
We've just had, apparently, the biggest gaming convention in the world.
And we didn't go to it.
And we didn't go to it, but we know a man who did, and we've had a damn good look at all the news on Twitter, Facebook, Board Game Geek, of all the exciting games that have been on show, got released, were available to buy, and we've picked out some of those that have particularly caught our fancy.
We have. There's quite a few, actually.
There's some exciting stuff out there.
This could be a financially ruinous year for us.
Yeah, we've got probably 2 months. A lot of those games get announced. We've got about 2 months before they hit the UK.
Better start saving.
Yeah.
And then it's nearly Christmas. I'm going to cry now.
Or you could ask for lots of Christmas presents.
I could ask, yeah.
£70 for a board game? Good grief, son. Of course not.
You'll get Monopoly and you'll like it.
I've already got 2 copies. I don't need a third.
So it's been interesting kind of looking at these, and I want to go through some of the things that we've seen on the internet of what's been released and kind of say what's caught our eye, really.
Yeah, some of our highlights.
Yeah. But first, I think we should speak to someone who's actually been to Gen Con.
That would be a good idea.
So,
who do we know that's done that?
Well, we know a couple of people. We know someone who's not far away who likes to advertise his codename-based games on our podcast every so often. So I'd like to say hello to Mr. Paul Grogan of Gaming Rules and Czech Games Edition.
Hello, Paul.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks. Hello to everybody there.
I hear you've just come back from Gen Con.
Yeah, I kind of lost track of what day it is. I think, I got back recently, but then I had some sleep and then just dived straight back into the work. So I haven't really unpacked or anything yet. But yeah, crazy time.
You haven't really recuperated yet, or have you?
No,
Back to normal now?
No, not really.
So you were there for the full 4 days, or were you there for...
Yeah, I mean, I was actually over in America beforehand for another event, WBC, World Board Gaming Championships. So I had 1 day where I was basically travelling from one to the other. So by the time Gen Con started, I was fully recovered from any jet lag and everything was fine. And I was actually there on the Tuesday to do the setup of our room. And then I was there on the Wednesday to train all of the demo staff. And then Gen Con itself was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So yeah, definitely there for the whole duration.
So in case anyone doesn't know, in case they haven't listened to a previous podcast or your podcast, what was your job there? Because you were there for a specific company, weren't you?
Yeah, so Czech Games Edition basically paid for me to go over there. My responsibility was to organise all of the events that were going on in the room. So this year, CG advanced from a very small booth, which we had last year, to a huge, 100-seater room. In there, we were running lots and lots of drop-in sessions. So that basically just needed making sure each game was on a table and that there was people available. But we ran, I think, 67 ticketed events over the course of the weekend. So we ran sort of official 2-hour learn-to-play events where, somebody was guaranteed that they would have that game on that table, and 2 hours they have a dedicated person to teach them how to play. So it's one step up from just a demo, which is, basically if there's a table free and the game you wanted to play is free, then you can do it. Ticketed events is a guarantee that you'll get that. And they were only $2 each. But I took that sort of fairly seriously. I thought, well, if people are paying for a game, even though it is only $2, I'm going to guarantee that the person who's going to be at that table knows the game as well as they can do. So in the run-up to Gen Con, I basically had the entire demo team. I got my Excel spreadsheet out. Everybody rated themselves on how well they knew each game. I then made sure the right people were at the right tables at the right time. Some of them had to learn games a bit better. That part of the event went really well. We got really positive feedback from these learn to play events. People said, yeah, the demo person was really good, and they all went really well. It's just that left us a bit short on general people in the room. So at the peak times, when the room was absolutely flooded with people, a number of people had to come in and just find a table with a game on it and start teaching themselves, which wasn't ideal, but unless you've got 15 demo staff for 15 tables, then that sometimes happens.
So to give people a bit of background, because you've been to, several conventions now. So, I've been to UK Games Expo, I've been to Essen.
Yeah.
Essen is probably the nearest comparison, is it? But how does it actually compare to Essen?
It's not.
Oh, right, okay.
No, UK Games Expo is the nearest comparison.
Really?
Yeah. Now, Essen is the comparison in terms of size. They are roughly the same size. I'm not going to get into the debate about which one's bigger and which one's better. They're both roughly the same size and they're both as good as one another. But Essen is, imagine the exhibit, well, you've been to Essen, so for anybody who hasn't been to Essen, but who has been to UK Games Expo or Gen Con, imagine the exhibitors hall, and that's it. I mean, it's that times 4, it's huge, there's like 4 halls, but it is just 10 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, lots and lots of exhibitors. Each exhibitor might just have a booth with one table. Some of the bigger ones have lots of demo tables for you to play their game at. You buy lots of games there, but there's no open gaming, there's no events, there's no tournaments, there's no like 500 player X-Wing tournament happening in a building next door. It is just the exhibition halls, and then when it closes, you disappear. Whereas UK Games Expo and Gen Con, the exhibition hall might close, but there's so many other things going on, and massive rooms of open gaming till 3 in the morning, huge tournaments that are going on there, you know, and it covers everything from role-playing, wargaming, card gaming, you know, the whole lot, whereas Essen does tend to focus more on the board gaming side of things.
So I gather you're spending most of the time at the Czech Games Edition booth. Did you actually get a chance to see much of the rest of the exhibition?
So yeah, I mean, last year I did a little bit because we were in the exhibit hall. And we had like, there was me and 3 other demo staff and 2 CGE guys on like a 5 foot by 5 foot area with one table. So we had plenty of people, and that meant last year I was able to disappear off for half an hour or an hour at a time and wander the exhibit hall. This year I was working from 8 in the morning till about 11 at night with no break. I mean, literally pop to the restroom. Some days managed to pop out, grab a sandwich, come straight back. And that was it. So by the time, you know, our room opened before the exhibit hall opened, and the exhibit hall closed at 6, and I was still there at 11. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, no chance. On Sunday, we had more people on, and it was a quieter room. So I managed to get an hour to go around the exhibit hall and just try and see a few people that I wanted to see. But I didn't get a chance to see everybody. So yeah, really didn't see much of the event myself.
Did you guys get much of a buzz of what was going on then? Because I can imagine you missed out on a lot by not having a chance to look round.
Yeah, from other people. So yeah, and the thing is, it's weird because since Gen Con, social media has been alive with the top 10 games of Gen Con, and I'm looking at them and going, well, you missed this one, and this one, and it's like the top 10 games that they saw. You know, it was very difficult to see everything at Gen Con, and especially with our room being away from the main exhibit hall. We were like over the other side of the event centre, so a lot of people didn't actually realise that we were there, which was a bit of a shame. So apart from Codenames Pictures, which ended up number 1 on the buzz list over the weekend, which was good considering the location of our room, we didn't know if people could be bothered to go all the way back and you know, rate us on the buzz list. Cry Havoc, another game that I've been involved in doing the rulebook for, and that was getting a huge amount of buzz beforehand, so that was always going to be one of the big buzz games, and Cry Havoc ended up number 1 at some point over the weekend. I think it finally ended up on maybe number 2 or number 3. Scythe was getting a lot of buzz, but that's kind of old news now. I mean,
there's been a lot of buzz for Scythe for a long time.
Well, exactly, and there's still buzz for it, and people are just getting their copies, and the guys who were selling Scythe in the exhibition hall, you know, had a crazy time and sold 1,000 copies of it, so that was great. Captain Sonar was a game which I was hearing a lot of people talking about.
Okay.
And that sold out, and it's a game which I definitely need to look into, because a lot of people, other podcast people, kept coming into the room to say hello to me and bring me emergency supplies, because I was basically falling over from lack of food. And a lot of them had mentioned Captain Sonar as being one of the games that they really liked. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. People compared it to Space Cadets, the original Jeff Engelstein Space Cadets game.
That's the comparison I've been hearing, yeah.
Right, but you have like teams of 4, and I believe that each team sits on one side of the table so that you're opposite one of the other players. There's a screen between you, and each player is operating part of the submarine, and it can be played in either real-time or turn-based mode. That's as far as I know, apart from everybody says it was really good. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Adrenaline that we were running, which you know yourself, that wasn't really getting the buzz in terms of the Gen Con buzz, because it hadn't been released. So it was just the prototype that we were showing. However, me and another guy from CG, we were demoing it pretty much constantly the entire weekend. We had one of the Geek Chic tables in the front of our room. We had Adrenaline set up there. And I lost track of how many games we ran of it. It must have been at least 40 or 50 over the weekend. And everybody who played it was like, same impression as people got from UK Games Expo. They were sceptical at first, and then once they're a few turns in, it was just, oh, this is really cool. And you explain a new rule to them, the overkill rule, and they go, ah, yeah, that's cool, that really works. So, yeah, very, very happy about the demos that we ran of that. But yeah, game's not out yet.
So do you think that affects the buzz? I think is it a lot of the Gen Con buzz about what you can take home with you?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Because one of the things I found about this year at the UK Games Expo that wasn't as noticeable in previous years was the amount of previews that were there, people who were showing things off ready for Kickstarters in 3 or 6 months' time. And I wondered whether that's something you're seeing in elsewhere. So you didn't see that in Essen. Essen was very much a case of like, here's the brand new thing we're about to bring out. Were you seeing that brand new thing, or were you seeing that here's Kickstarter coming when you're over at Gen Con? I
think it was mainly released games.
Okay.
I can't, apart from us showing Adrenaline, and I didn't really get to see any of the rest of the event, but I got the impression that there wasn't many other people, if any, apart from, not in the exhibitors hall, but there is a place next to the exhibitors hall, which is like an open gaming area where companies can reserve a set of tables where they can basically have staff doing demos all weekend. And I know a few of my clients had games there on those tables that are not out yet, that they were showing to people. So it is something that you can do at Gen Con. I also think there's another bit, a little bit like Rob Harris's Playtest UK had at UK Games Expo. I think there's an area like that at Gen Con for new designers that have got their games that they're just working on. But it does make sense, if you've got a game coming up on Kickstarter, having it at one of these events just before the Kickstarter launches, or ideally the Kickstarter launches just before the event starts. That's what I'd do. If I was running a Kickstarter, I would launch it just before UK Games Expo, because then everybody who plays your game at UK Games Expo, if they liked it, will go and back it. If you launch it a month later, they've forgotten about it. So it's just, it seems crazy not to have a Kickstarter running during one of the big events of the year, because that's when you're going to get lots of people playing it.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people don't seem to kind of make that connection as well, I think.
Yeah. So Gen Con, for anybody who's thinking of going to Gen Con, I've had a few people comment to me after last year and this year, wow, that looks amazing, maybe I should go across. Obviously, my flights were paid for and my hotel was paid for. If it wasn't, that's a very, very expensive trip for 4 days away.
Yes,
very expensive.
I've looked at it and yes, I had my doubts when I put the numbers together.
Yeah, if you have lots of disposable income and you want the experience, then do it, because when I got back from Gen Con last year, it was like nothing I'd experienced before. And I've been to Essen for 16 years, and I will go to Essen every year of my life because it's amazing. But Gen Con was on a different level. Walking around the streets of Indianapolis at, 11 o'clock at night or 1 in the morning and seeing just hordes and hordes of gamers everywhere in bars playing games. And, that open gaming hall was just ginormous. And there's so much other stuff going on at Gen Con. It is a 24-hour experience almost, with something for everybody. Whereas, Essen is just the exhibit hall, which is great and I love it, but that's all there is to it. Yeah,
it's one thing I kind of found a little bit disappointing about Essen is once, as you said, the doors shut, it just kind of dissipates, and you see people playing games in the odd hotel, but it's not. You wouldn't know there's gamers in every single hotel when you're looking around.
Well, the location for the Messe, which is where Spiel is held in Essen, it's not in the middle of nowhere, but there's nothing near it. So, whereas, the ICC in the middle of downtown Indianapolis is surrounded by hotels and restaurants.
Yeah.
So as soon as Gen Con, well, it doesn't really finish, but as soon as people start drifting out, there's lots and lots of places to go. And you walk into any bar or restaurant and it will just be filled with gamers. I don't know what the locals do during that time. They probably emigrate to Australia or something like that.
You've mentioned Cry Havoc is something you've been working on. I didn't realise this. So is there anything else you've got in the pipeline that you might
lots. Yeah, I think I've done like 14 rule books this year already. Right now I'm trying to finish up the Robinson Crusoe rule book. And basically, after we finish that rule book, everything else is going to seem like child's play. So that's going to print next week, I believe. So we're in the final round of editing for that rule book now. Everything else has gone to print. So it's just the rule book left, but it's a massive undertaking, and I want to make that rule book as as good as I can. So that's one of the things I'm working on. I've got a few other little things that I'm working on for various other companies, some of which I can't talk about because that company hasn't announced that they're going to be doing it yet. And I've got loads of other rulebooks to do, and I've got the Gloomhaven video, which I need to be getting started on soon, because the idea is that I will have the rules video done for Gloomhaven as the backers are getting their copies, because my company logo is on the back of the box. There's a QR code on the front of the rulebook. If that QR code doesn't go to a video, then that would be bad. That's the idea. But again, the Gloomhaven video is going to be a massive undertaking, and it's going to take probably 80 to 100 hours of work, I think. And I got to fit that in along with everything else. So yeah, there's so much going on at the moment. I'm just about managing to keep my head above water with everything.
Well, I should probably stop wasting your precious time then, Paul.
Well, this is my break. This is my break today. And of course, Essen is now... I don't have another event now until Essen, but the build-up to Essen is normally where it is just like 16-hour days, and I just don't see anybody. I might have my one night a week gaming, but that'll be it. So all of the work that I'm going to be doing for What's Your Game, because I get involved in their new games, videos, rulebooks and everything else, and also all the new CG stuff, and some of my other clients as well who've also got games coming out at Essen. I'll be getting involved in them. Essen's going to be a rest because it'll just be crazy times until then. And in fact, after Essen, I've already got 3 videos booked in between Essen and the end of the year.
Oh wow!
So that's it. This year's gone again. But yeah. So Vital Lacerda's new game, Lisboa. So he's had a series of 3 games published by Eagle Gryphon. He had The Gallerist, which was big and massively popular. Then he's got the updated version of Vinhos, which the Kickstarter has finished, and my video is done for that, so that's all done and up there. But Lisboa is his 3rd game, I say in the series. It's not like they're connected in any way, it's just he had a 3-game agreement with Eagle Gryphon, so this is the 3rd one. The game's currently still in development, but I'm hoping that it's all finished, because as soon as Essen finishes, that's when they want to launch the Kickstarter in November, so I've got to do the video ready for the launch of the Kickstarter. But haven't started that one yet because he's still working on actually designing and developing the game.
So would you say, especially for you based in Europe, is Essen more of a business thing? You say you got this massive build-up. Did you have just as big a build-up going into Gen Con?
No, because apart from Codenames Pictures, CG wasn't releasing anything else for Gen Con. And Codenames Pictures, my involvement in that was fairly minimal. I commented on a couple of the pictures. I maybe made a couple of comments on the rules because CG have a guy called Jason Holt, who's an American guy, speaks fluent Czech, has known Vlaja for many, many years, and they write rule books together. So my involvement in CG rule books is actually fairly minimal. So the build up to Gen Con for me was planning all of the events and the demo team rather than, getting everything ready for production. Whereas Essen, most of my other clients, Essen is the big release for most of their games. So there's a lot more work to do in the lead up to Essen for me than there is for Gen Con.
So just to reiterate, because I think we talked about this at the Expo, but which games are Czech Games Edition releasing at Essen this year?
Well, Codenames Pictures will be in... the pre-release was at Gen Con, so that was available to people at Gen Con, and it will be hitting stores sometime mid to end of September. I kind of don't class Codenames Pictures as being released at Essen, but we're going to sell hundreds of copies at Essen.
Yeah, it's probably going to be its first spike, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. So that will be out at Essen. We've got Adrenaline that should be out at Essen. That's going to be our new big box game. We've got an Alchemists expansion, which will also be out at Essen. And I think that's it, because the Through the Ages expansion has been delayed and put back probably till, next year now. The app for Through the Ages, Vlaja says is almost ready. So give that another 5 years. Whether that will be out for Essen or not, I don't know, but Vlaja will only release it when he's 100% happy with it. So, watch this space for that one.
Well, thanks very much, Paul.
That's all right.
Thanks for taking time out of your obviously very busy schedule.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was good. It was good to have a break, get away from the Robinson Crusoe rulebook, but now I'll go straight back to it.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we'll speak to you again soon.
Yeah, cheers for having me on. See you guys.
Well, thank you very much, Paul, for that information.
Yes, Paul, thank you.
I gotta admit, you two were amazingly quiet during that bit.
I think he covered everything.
Considering you've been, you gob off at every available opportunity, I thought you were remarkably
He's a guest.
quiet.
We have to be nice to guests.
He's a very intimidating person.
Yes, he's huge, giant of a man.
Personally, I really liked it when he talked about
Captain Sonar.
I don't know why, it just struck a chord with me.
And when he did the chicken impression, that was really cool. Absolutely brilliant. He should do that again, live, at Essen.
With
in
action,
a costume.
with actions.
So, I mean, I've been really excited by some of these things that have come out, and I think some of them are really interesting discussion points. Which is why we're not doing any questions this episode, so we're going to go through some of this Gen Con stuff instead of questions. Well, yeah, we only seem to get questions when we ask for them. No one just volunteers them. But
I was going to ask, and I forgot because I was at work and someone asked me a question. Oh, the irony.
Was it a good question? Oh, no, I see.
No, it wasn't.
A couple of things that picked up my mind. The biggest one to me, as a biggest announcement, the RuneWars miniatures game, which I think is very interesting and suggests some interesting things that are happening in the industry at the moment.
How do you have a war with runes? Just sort of throw lumps of rock at each other. Very, really beautifully crafted stone, but, you know.
So, well, RuneWars is a Fantasy Flight game which is kind of a generic fantasy world. I think they call it Terranoff, but it's not licensed, it's their world. So, whereas they do Star Wars, the Call of Cthulhu series...
This is actual generic IP.
This is a generic IP that they currently own. So it's their IP. I mean, it's a bit bog standard fantasy in a lot of ways. It's very colourful. It's closer to World of Warcraft than Warhammer.
I was going to say, it looks very similar to Warhammer Fantasy.
It looks a little bit like, just standard Warhammer.
Well, this is what is really, really interesting. So what it is, this is a rank and file miniatures game. So you're going to have blocks of troops similar to your Warhammer Fantasy Battles.
Space Marine.
No, not
Bigger.
Space Marine. No,
Bigger.
Space Marine wasn't rank and file.
It had like 5 things on the little wheel.
Yeah, but they weren't rank and file though. They were just individual stands.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by rank and file then?
So like historic Napoleon games generally have, in which you have a block of troops, and that block of troops moves as a block. So you might have like 3 or 4 regiments. Like Warhammer Fantasy Battles is the best example.
Okay.
So you'll have like 3 or 4 regiments of troops, and they all have to move as a block. So when they turn, they have to have a wheel from a corner, that kind of thing. And you'll have spearmen and archers and cavalry and that kind of thing.
So a bit like Epic, if you ever played that one.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not like Epic, because Epic, even though it's 5 people on a stand, they were individual stands. You didn't have to clump them all together into a block. Okay. If you've played any kind of historical thing, like any Napoleonic era kind of work, that's rank and file troops. If you've played any, in Warhammer Fantasy, Kings of War, which is the Mantic one, it's that thing where they all move as a block. So it represents what you kind of see in Game of Thrones, and the battle happens. You have a regiment of spearmen that all move up in a row.
So it's almost like the I don't know if you played the Total War series on the computer.
Exactly that.
Right.
If you're video game playing, you've played Total War. That's what I mean by rank and file. You'll have a block of troops.
So the difference is that it's not just a square representing troops, it's a long thin bit.
Yeah. So when you played the old Warhammer, you had like 30 models arranged in a rectangle.
Yeah.
As things progressed, you start to put these onto little trays, because it was damn sight easier moving a tray of models than it was trying to shuffle 30 miniatures around on a table. What's interesting about this, and you both caught up Space Marine and Epic, is because from a distance, these models look like Space Marine and Epic.
They do.
In that you've got a square base that slots in 4 miniatures. Now, what is really interesting as well is if you've ever played X-Wing, or one of the X-Wing derivatives, so there's a Dungeons & Dragons one of Dragons, and there's the Star Trek one. They run on the same principle that you turn the dial, which has got your manoeuvre on, and you place the manoeuvre token in front of your miniature, move it along the token, and that's how you move. So all your moves are set by these little movement templates. This looks like they've taken that concept and put it into a normal scale of miniatures game.
Are these 80mm then? Not 80mm, 28mm.
28mm. I think.
80mm? Wow.
I've only seen photographs so far, and I think they're 28mm.
They look.
They look a little bit smaller actually, because you can see the dice. But I said we none of us were at Gen Con, so we never saw them in the flesh. But they look like it. And the other thing that's interesting as well, from a Fantasy Flight point of view, they're not painted. So these come unpainted, you can paint them yourself, like a traditional miniatures game. Now, in the past, Fantasy Flight have only done the X-Wing and Star Wars Armada, which are pre-painted miniatures. And why I think this is interesting, because it hints at a bigger thing. For the last, I think, 10 years or so, Fantasy Flight Games have had a relationship with Games Workshop. So they reprinted Talisman, they reprinted Fury of Dracula, games which we've talked about a few times. They then took those licenses, the Warhammer 40,000, the Warhammer licenses, and made brand new games based on them. So they made Relic, which is a re-implementation of Talisman based in the 40k universe.
It is basically Talisman in space.
Basically Talisman, streamlined Talisman in space. They made collectible card games, so
Horus Heresy as
Warhammer
well.
Chronicles, Horus Heresy, which is a reprint. They made Forbidden Stars, which is an amazing game where they basically made a 4X game on the 40k license. So like TI or
I need to play that.
yeah, it's really, really good. But that's where this gets interesting, because everyone was expecting an expansion to Forbidden Stars to come out. And there's hints on forums that this is not going to happen, suggesting that the license deal between Games Workshop and FFG has changed. Now, one of this may be because Games Workshop over the last 12 months have actually been releasing a lot of their own board games. They're very miniature based, they're very dice faced, and they're very light. But they've been doing one every 2 months.
Really?
More or less. Yeah.
Games Workshop releasing light games.
Yeah, well, I say light. They're expensive, they're heavy boxes, but they're quite light rules-wise compared to what
No,
we're
that's
used
what I
to.
meant.
Yeah.
It's just like, really? They don't have 15 books that you need to memorise and then argue about during the game.
No, these things are unbelievably light. And this really feels weird, because one of the other things Game Workshop did recently is they completely disbanded Warhammer Fantasy Battles.
I did not know that.
It's gone and it's been
Really?
replaced by Age of Sigmar. And Age of Sigmar is a skirmish game, so it's basically 40k in the Warhammer setting.
Right.
So what they've done is they've actually made a story reason that they've wiped the entire universe, and all the races have come back. Funnily enough, with copyrightable names. So rather than just
How convenient.
yeah, rather than being dwarfs, they're like the Fireforged, and rather than being orcs, they're the Orax. Things you can, funnily enough, trademark.
Uh-huh.
But they've also got rid of the rank and file, and it's now a skirmish game on individual round bases. And there are rules to use all your old Warhammer models in this. They haven't completely abandoned it, but they've got rid of this idea of the rank and file.
That would annoy a lot of people.
It annoyed a lot of people anyway. There's a video of someone burning their entire high elf army that they spent like 10 years collecting in protest.
Jeez.
Just sell the fucking thing on eBay for crying
Yeah,
out loud.
someone will buy it.
Yeah. But what I think is really, really interesting is Fantasy Flight Games have now made a rank and file miniatures game which effectively is a replacement for Warhammer Fantasy Battles. At the same time, it appears that they're losing their Games Workshop license.
The more cynical and sceptical amongst you might say.
Andy,
I don't know what you mean.
I think you do.
Now,
Maybe.
whether this game is going to be any good or not, I don't know. I really like the idea of using the X-Wing movement system in a rank and file game. As soon as you didn't think of it myself beforehand, but as soon as you saw that together, it's like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Maybe they're going to merge. Fantasy Flight Workshop.
Well, one of my theories is
Games Flight.
Games.
Right, do you want to... I've got a theory about this, which is not far off, actually. Fantasy Flight Games is currently owned by Asmodee.
Yes.
Well, I say owned by Asmodee, the two companies merged because they were roughly the same size. So Fantasy Flight Games is now a subset of Asmodee North America. If you look into what Asmodee are, they've been bankrolled by this massive French finance company. So they're not on the stock market, but they've got a lot of money behind them. I mean, ridiculous amounts of money.
C'est bon, yeah?
Yeah. And if you look, my French is terrible.
No shit.
I was just thinking if I could catch him, and I did.
Oh, God. This podcast in Welsh soon.
Das ist gut.
Borodar.
But as ydych chi, dwi'n hoffi chwarae gymbodd.
Same to your mum.
Yeah. But there's a presentation you can find online because this company's quite a big. This finance company is quite big. So if you go online, you can find the presentation made by this finance company, and they've segregated the market into like 5 or 6 chunks, which is basically at the one end is the family game, as in like family kids game, going up into complexity until you get to the thematic end, and they basically say, we've bought this company for this section, we've bought this company for this section, and at top right is Fantasy Flight Games, we've bought this for the hardcore market.
Right.
And the weird thing is, as I looked at this, I kind of went, there's a miniatures game company missing.
Right.
There's a Games Workshop and a Privateer Press missing off the end of this list that makes the tabletop miniatures games. And I just wonder whether something will happen in the near future. That's my prediction. My prediction is Asmodee will merge with a big miniatures games company, either Games Workshop or Privateer Press.
You heard it here first, folks.
So speaking of taking games from one area and putting them into another situation that works, I thought Seafall sounded quite interesting as a concept.
Yes.
All I've read is the bits and pieces, some highlights from Gen Con, and obviously I wasn't there myself, but it's a competitive legacy game. So we've been playing Pandemic Legacy for quite some time now. Years, it feels like.
We haven't played it for quite some time either, but yes.
But that's a cooperative legacy game. So what happens in one game carries over to the next, and things get progressively, possibly not necessarily worse in this case, but things that happen in earlier games continue.
Definitely in our case.
Yeah. But quite interested in the idea of a competitive version of that. So kind of like a campaign sort of thing where, like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of role-playing situation where things are carried over from one to the next. But anything you've done to people before gets remembered, I imagine.
I was going to ask, I wonder, obviously we don't know, we've not seen the game, I wonder how that works, where presumably there are win conditions at the end of each bit. I wonder if you could end up in a runaway situation where the winner of one game obviously keeps their like turbo stats or whatever they happen to be, and then that gives them an advantage in the next game. I don't know.
Maybe there's some sort of levelling.
I'd imagine there probably is.
It's the third legacy game by Rob Daviau. So far, every game which has the term legacy in the title has all come from Rob Daviau. So he's done
even Pandemic.
Yeah.
Really?
So it was
wasn't Matt Leacock?
No, it was both of them. They worked together to design Pandemic Legacy.
Right.
This is the first legacy game which is being built from the ground up. Risk Legacy, of course, is based on Risk. Pandemic Legacy based on Pandemic. This is the first one where they've taken a blank sheet of paper and gone, let's make a legacy game and we can do what we want. Yeah.
Do you know what? When I first I saw this, because we've been looking at these for a wee while now, just sort of keeping our eye on Gen Con, and I noticed John took a shining to Seafall here, and I looked at the image of it, and I saw it's by Plaid Hat. Yeah. And there's 5 player boards around the board, which is like a big grey square, and I thought, that just looks like Dead of Winter.
So John is now looking for images of Seafall to show us what the game looks like.
Don't Google Seafall.
And he's basically found a picture of loads of naked people on a boat.
Seafall, all one word, for those of you at work. Don't separate the words.
I reckon that's Google looking at what your preferences are.
Oh my.
So yeah, it's designed.
Don't do this on my laptop.
It's Plaid Hat Games, so I think it's the same graphic design as they use in their other games. If you look at most of Plaid Hat games, they do all have similar appearance. And I know they tend to use the same artist. Yeah, now you show this picture. Yeah, I can see what you mean. If you look at that from a distance, that does look a lot like Dead of Winter, but blue rather than white.
Yeah. I'm sure it's nothing like it unless zombies can swim.
Oh dear gods.
I'm keeping that as my own IP. Now that it's out there, god damn it, I can't trademark it.
So at Essen 2017, we'll see Underwater Zombies, the board game.
Underwater or overwater? Is it Zombie Sea World?
You can have Zombie Jesus that could walk across the water.
This looks really interesting because I said it's a legacy game built from the ground up. Age of Sail. God knows how it's going to work. I mean, it only got released at Gen Con, so I've not even seen it.
It was out now.
It came out at Gen Con. Yeah, you could pick up a copy at Gen Con.
Oh, we can't get the Kickstarter then.
It wasn't. It wasn't
release?
Kickstarter, but they did do a pre-order system.
Okay.
Where if you pre-ordered it, you got like an upgraded version.
Yeah, you got like
metal
coins. Money. Yeah.
I did look at that. I actually was very tempted.
Just for the metal money.
Well,
you were going to say it, weren't you?
No, I was thinking of buying the Dead of
no.
Winter expansion, and then looked at the shipping cost and went, that's a lot of money for some metal coins.
Do you know what?
That comes out in the UK.
I've got a bee in my bonnet about that while we're on the Dead of Winter expansion.
Go on.
It's not an expansion, it's a standalone. How can you expand something with 20? Anyway, that's something that we should discuss in another podcast.
If you listen to the We're Not Wizards podcast from about a month ago, they've got the designer of Dead of Winter on as a guest, and he explains some of the reasoning behind that. He actually says, if you go look at the BGG forums, he's gone into a lot of detail, but he goes in and says why they made it a standalone second version of the game with all new stuff rather than just an expansion. I can't expand alone.
I like that. That's quite good. Yes.
There's a few of the games that do this. Dominion did this. Dominion and Dominion Intrigue. You didn't need to have either set to buy them, so you could start wherever you wanted. So you could mix up the two sets is the idea, and you'll get a massive stack of Crossroads cards.
Okay. Okay. So is Seafall, is that a Crossroads game then?
No.
We don't know. Okay.
Well, no, there's not been a second Crossroads game yet. They keep saying there's going to be one, but no details have been released yet. So.
Was Crossroads a game?
No, it's the mechanic in Dead of Winter where the person who's just played, or is about to play, whichever one it is, draws from that massive deck that affects the person currently playing. So if something triggers, if the condition on that card triggers during the person who's playing turn, then you instantly resolve that issue. So it could be like the voting condition, or everyone decides, yeah, we'll eat the dog, or we'll ride the horse, or we'll shoot the old people outside, or whatever it is. That's the Crossroads element.
Don't get those mixed up, by the way. Ride the old people, shoot the horse.
Ride the dog.
Well, it is the Wonder Dog.
That's true.
There was a point in the last game where that dog had night vision goggles and a sniper rifle, so I'm sure
It was very good with it. It killed like 4 zombies with a sniper rifle. What a great dog. But then it died.
It played the first game we had. It played guitar. It played guitar and raised everyone's morale, which a singing guitar playing dog
Probably
really would.
yeah.
Morale.
And then next up on the radio too, we've got Shep, who's playing Sweet Child of Mine.
Imagine Pandemic.
I would say we have mentioned Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu about 3 times already.
We have.
But now we can focus on it.
I was trying to segue every single time. I thought, no, Andy, you can't.
No, I mean, as in like 2 previous podcasts we've mentioned Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu.
We have, because I think the first time we mentioned it, we said, yeah, someone should really do it.
Well, no, we mentioned it because it was coming out. It was at the UK Games Expo, so we kept on saying, "Oh, we should really go look at that."
Yeah, and we couldn't find it.
And then we didn't follow our own advice. And
it wasn't there. It's a lie. It was never there. We were there for 3 days and we didn't find it.
Ironically, we walked past it at the press preview. I mean, quite literally walked within half a yard of it.
Nah, it wasn't there. It's a
Strictly
lie.
speaking, you two walked within half a yard.
What are you saying?
That I wasn't lucky enough to walk past it with you.
And pay it no attention whatsoever. Oh well. And that just shows you the level of professionalism you're dealing with here, people.
So we're all pretty excited about the idea.
Yes.
Yes.
Pandemic, good.
Cthulhu, good.
Well, pretty bad, but
Yeah.
combination, I think we could all see how that could work.
Yes.
So pretty excited about it, basically.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty cool. If they introduced a legacy version of it, that'd be even better.
Oh my god.
So that's 2 genius ideas I've had in 5 minutes. I should work with Eric Lang. We'd kick ass.
Speaking of Eric Lang, they announced one of his next games. Several of his games got released.
He has just about 15 a day.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think whereas most of us read a book in the evening, he just designs and releases another board game. So, Cool Mini or Not, who worked with Eric Lang on 2 previous games actually, Blood Rage and the others, 7 Deadly Sins, who he also worked with the artist Adrian Smith and...
Seemed like the artist formerly known as Prince.
That was someone else.
And miniature sculptor Mike McVeigh.
We are aware of his work.
We are aware of his work. He previously did a game called Blood Rage, which is a Viking game, and now they're releasing, or they've announced, what they call the spiritual sequel, which is Rising Sun.
This looks cool.
So whereas Blood Rage was a game about Vikings, this is a game about samurai. Now,
I like samurai.
the fact they said it's a spiritual sequel makes me interested but worries me as well, because is it just the same game with a retheme?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just new miniatures. We'll get your cash in the bag. Here's the cynic coming out of me now.
Yeah.
It's the same rules. It's just a different board with different miniatures and a couple of different mechanics. So instead of using your broadsword, you'd use your little rapier or your katana or whatever it is. But it does look pretty.
It does look very pretty, and it's going to be massively popular.
Oh, sure
because Blood Rage was a really hyped game, and this is going to be just as hyped because it's going to be the sequel to...
Did you nearly say overhyped, Mr. Tudor?
Right.
You caught yourself there, didn't you? And I heard it.
Right.
That's right, I can edit it out later.
No. I'm gonna come clean with this. I've got Blood Rage. I bought
You can get cream for it, don't worry.
I bought a copy as soon as I could get it in the UK. I didn't back the Kickstarter, but I did get it as soon as I get it in the UK. I like the game, but I think it's flawed. And there are several reasons why I think it's flawed. I want you guys to play it, but I want us to do a section on it in a future episode.
All right, that's fine.
After you guys have played it. 'Cause it takes about an hour to play.
Oh, really? It's quite short?
It's quite short, yeah. I think, well, maybe an hour and a half your first game, an hour to play after that.
Right.
Yeah. But I want to get at least one of you other guys to have played it first to get your opinion on it, because it's a fun game, but there are problems with it. My biggest problem, like the ratcheting of the scores. The first round, if you score 10 points, you're doing well. In the last round, if you're not scoring 100 points, you're doing bad.
Okay.
Meaning that the first round seems almost pointless.
I see what you mean. Yeah, sure.
I said it's fun. Somebody had an interview with Eric Lang where they asked him about game design, and he said he looks for the fun. So when he's playtesting a game, he looks at what bits people are enjoying, and the bits people he doesn't like, he just scraps straight away. So he concentrates on building the fun into the game. And I think this is what Blood Rage is. It's a game that's fun, but then when you step away from it, you kind of go, what just happened? Now, there are people who will say that you play this game 5 or 6 times and you start to really develop the strategies.
It's great until you think about it, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But then there's the converse of that. When the more you think about it and the more you get out of this game, the more fun you have. But anyway, I'm intrigued to know what this game is and what's different between that and Blood Rage. I mean, as I said, the miniatures look amazing already.
Yeah,
it's cool. I mean, if you were going to do a D&D campaign set or an RPG campaign set in an oriental setting with samurai, it's worth buying it just to have some miniatures for your game, really.
It's fair. It does look very, very nice.
It did look pretty.
That.
Now, another game I do want to quickly mention, which is also the other Cool Mini or Not one that got announced, was Raise Your Goblets.
Tell you who what?
Raise your goblets.
Cheers.
Cheers. Me and John have played this game, but John might struggle to remember playing it because we played a pre-Kickstarter prototype.
I've played it too.
Did you play as well?
Yes. We were here in this very room.
I thought it was just me and John. Sorry.
No.
So we've all played this then.
I don't remember playing it.
John doesn't remember
We played it with Caroline as well.
Yeah, we've played it in John's dining room and John
one.
doesn't remember.
Yes.
So
Yes,
we've
I
all
do.
played this game. It was a pre-Kickstarter prototype that I did a review of, so I subjected all you guys to it. And I don't know exactly what happened, but halfway through the Kickstarter, it got picked up by Horrible Games, who are working with Cool Mini or Not. They've renamed
That's
it.
their name, not the description.
No, Horrible Names
that's
is
good, that's
the
good,
name.
that's good.
Horrible
And
Games.
Ironically, their games are not horrible at all. They're actually really good.
That's good to know. Excellent. I just want to clarify that.
So it's been rebranded as Raise Your Goblets rather than Toast, which is the version we played. And they've redone all the art completely, which I found really bizarre as well, because the art was actually really good.
It
Yeah, I
was.
remember it was
Yeah,
actually.
I really like that. It was quite cartoony, it was fun, it was colourful, yeah.
It's still cartoony and fun and colourful, but they've redone it all, so it's all different art.
Ah.
But it's the same game. So this is a game where it's a party game, it's quite quick. You all are people at a dinner party, and the idea is to poison everyone else. And you do this by pouring into everyone else's glass, which is basically you put a glass bead, is the version we played, and the different coloured glass beads were wine, antidote and poison. And you had to top glasses up and then move glasses around so that somebody else's glass had the poison and yours didn't.
And it was an absolute nightmare to keep track of everything.
Have you ever seen A Princess Bride? It's like that, but with more people.
Yeah, 6-player Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Yes.
Inconceivable.
But I really enjoyed it, actually. I mean, I think we struggled with it here, but again, I took it to my other gaming group. It went down an absolute blast there. I think mainly because I think a couple of people had a bit more of an idea of where certain glasses were, so it really,
You mean they were paying attention?
They were paying more attention than you two were, yeah.
You're probably suggesting that those guys are more dedicated gamers and they don't drink or something like that.
Oh no, they were drinking. It was like 10:30 at night
Okay.
in a pub, so alcohol had been consumed.
Okay, they're just better than us.
Yes, it's as simple as that. So yeah, that one's really interesting because it's interesting where that's gone. It's a bit of a bizarre Kickstarter success because it's gone from Kickstarter to a full published game quite quickly.
That must have been, I don't know, 9 months ago.
About 9 months ago we played that. Yeah.
Because that was, it's interesting to see where it's gone in that not say relatively short space of time.
Yeah.
Because it did look good and it was fun. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Once because we played 2 or 3 games of it.
Yeah, because it's quite a quick
yeah, it
game
is.
to
It's like
play.
15 minutes or something.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting because it's another one of those games where you think that you've got a great strategy and then someone else will just, shuffle the cups around one and you're like,
Yeah, John.
I wasn't even paying attention to the next one. What's
I know what's in my glass. I've got no idea what's in this glass.
Yes. That's what I was referring to. You have to be paying attention. And that's where my strategy fell over. And we don't keep this. No, I like this glass. Leave it alone. This is a safe glass.
I did love the point when you didn't know when you'd actually call a toast. So anyone could call a toast whenever they cleared all their little tokens that are behind the screen. So you'd think, right, okay, I've got another round to get my glass back. To the king!
This is going to end badly.
Do we have to? I mean, the king? Throw it into a plant.
Another game, actually, from Horrible Games, Potion Explosion.
That looked awesome, actually.
Right, the Americans have been going bonkers over this because it just got released in US at Gen Con. It was at Essen last year, and it is awesome, but annoyingly, at the point when I decided I was going to buy it, it already sold out.
Oh.
So this game has got this little cardboard, like, chest of drawers, and marbles are in it. And so it's kind of like this Candy Crush or, not Tetris.
Yeah.
You pick out one marble.
Solitaire, almost.
Yeah, you pick out one marble, and it's on a little ramp. And if, after picking this marble out, two of the marbles of the same colour end up touching, you take them out as well. And these are your potion ingredients. So to mix a potion, you might need, like, 2 red marbles and 1 black marble. But each turn, you can only take 1 out, unless 2 touch. Then you can take them out.
So when you take one out, things fall down.
So yeah, it's on a ramp. It's on a ramp, yeah. So as you take a marble out, the marbles above it roll down.
Right, okay.
And you have a potion on a little stand or whatever it is outside that says you need these colours.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and each potion is worth so many points to make. So what you're trying to do is get the right colour combination you need for the potions. And if you want, you can sacrifice the potions for less points to use their ability, which is like you can take 3 marbles or things like that. It's basically, as I said, it's that kind of Candy Crush video game in a board game, which I've never seen before.
It looks quite cool.
That's an interesting idea, isn't it?
So do the marbles, because from what I've seen, there aren't that many marbles in it, maybe 30. So do they get replenished once they're all taken out? Or?
When you've mixed a potion, you drop them into the top of the box.
And they just come out randomly? That's awesome. That is just Candy Crush.
Yeah.
Or Bejeweled.
Yeah, Bejeweled. That's the one I was thinking of. It's Bejeweled, yeah.
Another thing I thought sounded quite interesting is a Star Trek RPG.
Yes.
I like the sound of that.
Modifius. Wait, have I got that right?
I think it's, Modifius.
Modifius, yeah.
Modifius, yeah.
Yeah, by Jay Little. I kind of like the idea of it. I saw you get like Picard miniatures and the other one.
Riker?
Right, no.
Kirk?
Yes, Kirk. Right. So there were miniatures of the main kind of players in the original series. But I kind of, the tagline was, the Federation needs a new crew, basically. And you kind of think, if it's going to be a new one, would it not be like completely new miniatures of, I don't know.
Of random people, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Jeff and his mates.
Yeah. To be fair, I haven't seen an enormous amount of detail of the game itself or what it entails. I just like the idea of a Star Trek RPG.
That does sound pretty cool, actually, because I mean the Star Trek universe is obviously vast, as big as, if not bigger than the Star Wars universe.
And it's more science fiction than science opera, as it were, space opera.
Yeah.
So you can largely do anything you want with Star Trek.
Yes.
Yeah, you've got the science, you've got the engineering, you've got
all the made-up words.
Yeah, all the other random bits and pieces.
You've got the word anomaly. That if that doesn't appear at least 3 times in your episode, then you're not up to par. Now, I do like the sound of it, but I don't know. I think it might be a little limiting because
I don't know.
Or geeks like me who are massive Trekkies might have a big problem with canon.
Oh no!
Well, maybe it's just not for big Trekkies like you.
Yeah, maybe the massive Trekkie needs to be the games master.
Probably, yes.
Although that could also be bad.
No, you can't do that, because in episode 24 of season 3, Data said, I don't know, I'm sure it'll be fine.
I like the idea of rolling, yourself a red shirt character who's always the first one in the fray. And with my ability to roll dice, what could possibly go wrong?
So John will always die in the first encounter.
Yeah.
Send in the red shirt.
Well, the weird thing about this one is I wouldn't normally mention a role-playing game from Modifius, because to be fair, they release one about every 2 months. And they all sound really cool. But they are releasing loads of them. They've just done a Conan one. They've just done one based on the Infinity Miniatures game.
Are they all the same thing with just a different skin?
Right. Now, a lot of them are based on this 2D20 system.
I was going to ask you about that.
So I've got to admit, I've put it in there. I don't know what that means. I have not played any of these role-playing games.
I'm guessing there's 2D20s.
I'm guessing you roll 2D20 when you do a check.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What's wrong with 1?
I know. It's like 1, but double.
So they're obviously based on a common rule system, but you do find that. I mean, there's the Fates RPG system, which gets used by loads of RPGs.
Yeah, you got Razorpunk and Steampunk and all that sort of shit as well.
Yeah,
so,
it can be added onto these basic systems. What the Star Trek one actually stood out for me is that Jay Little name. Because he's the chap who designed X-Wing and he designed Edge of the Empire, which is the Star Wars RPG. Now, we haven't played the Star Wars RPG yet. But
like do I say yet?
I'd say yet, because we're going to play it. I've got Edge of the Empire starter box, and I keep looking at this and thinking, this
Steve actually looks quite threatening right now. We're in a lot of trouble.
You're going to play it. You are going to play
it. He's pointing as well.
It is really fascinating the way that does resolution of events. It's not roll a d20, like it's custom dice. So you roll this pool of custom dice, and then you have to interpret
D24 or something.
No.
Interpret the runes.
You have to interpret the runes. It's like reading tea leaves when you actually make a check.
Interpretive dance. Moff. Just imagine Moff Tarkin doing an interpretive dance to fire the Death Star.
No, I can't picture it. So to quote the developers, characters roll 2d20s, attempting to roll as low as possible on each one. The more dice that roll low,
you do really well on this job.
The more successes the character scores. So it's kind of so in fact, yes, this is the game for me. You have to roll low numbers.
Unless
20. Oh my god! Not again.
I was going to say unless your skill is just rolling failures.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, it doesn't actually matter because D&D, for example, you roll high numbers. In this, you roll low. Statistically, it's completely irrelevant.
Yeah, but you know all those dice you've quarantined because they've been naughty.
Like the bag of 52 D6s I've just bought.
Yeah, when you roll them, it's like, I'm sick of your bullshit, you're going back in the drawer.
Pretty much, yeah. I've got 4 D6 here. I can guarantee you at least one will turn out as a 1.
Well, what you do is you can now pull out those naughty dice and bring them in you're playing Star Trek.
You're just optimising your dice collection.
Yeah.
Is this what you've been doing, Steve? Have I had the naughty dice collection? It's all becoming very clear to me.
It's not the naughty dice, it's John's dice.
I thought you'd give me that special bag because I was, special.
Yes, you are, John.
Oh dear. So, other games at Gen Con?
Fantasy Flight Games announced like hundreds, and some of them are really interesting. So you've been looking at Cosmic Encounter for some time, haven't you, Andy?
Well, yes and no, because I like the look of it, because it's kind of it looks fantastic and interesting, and I like sci-fi themed games, I like space games. I mean, I've got Eclipse, I've got Twilight Imperium, I've got those other bits and bobs. I've got Sins of the Solar Empire on the computer, all this sort of thing. So I really like sci-fi, I'm interested in the Star Trek thing, but I was looking at Cosmic Encounter and the 5 expansions, because I've got some kind of OCD about that, but I've been told, when I was looking at the game, I thought, that looks really cool. It looks interesting. You sort of build upon little rings that you build up and all this sort of stuff. Obviously, going into this, I have no idea how the game works at all. But a friend of mine, well, more of somebody I've met, informed me that it's not what I think it is. It's more of a space trading game.
Yes.
And that, I was like, oh.
It's more diplomatic, backstabby, and...
Yeah, I don't do that.
Yeah. It's more of a John game.
I was going to say, yeah, John should probably buy it.
Diplomatic.
And then we can play it.
Yeah. Anyway, the reason I mention this is because they've just announced a retheme of Cosmic Encounter.
Really?
In Game of Thrones.
Interesting.
I like Game of Thrones.
So it's the same concept of the game. You're dealing with other players, but rather than being alien races, it's
the 7
houses.
Kingdoms, whatever it is.
Yeah, you're dealing with other houses.
Sounds like it could work really well and very thematic.
Yes.
But no, I think that would work really well because Game of Thrones is backstabby, diplomatic, and all this sort of. I mean, I say this obviously not having played Cosmic Encounter, but I think that might be quite a good idea.
Yeah, it's not a game I've played, but I can see, from what I've heard of Cosmic Encounter, I can see how the two things match up, and I thought it might help because there's not that 5 expansions which are making your acquisition disorder twitch, that you might just be able to buy that and...
Or varying quality as well, apparently.
Yeah. Well, and I think the base set for Cosmic Encounter seems to go for...
Horribly expensive.
Yeah, it seems to be over... I think it's out of print at the moment. I think that's why.
Well, if it has, it's been out of print for a long time. Because I don't think I've seen it drop below about 55 quid. It's outrageously expensive.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, hopefully, Iron Throne then, which is what it's called. It's called the Iron Throne. Should be a bit more reasonably priced because it's a brand new version of it.
I might try it because I think combined with the theme of Game of Thrones, which we all know and love, then I that might be definitely worth a punt, or at least a playthrough or something, because playing as, I suppose, one of the higher ups in each of the houses could be quite entertaining.
But as long as you don't get your head cut off.
Yeah, they do that a lot. It's very unsporting, really.
So a couple of last things I kind of wanted to mention as well that have caught my eye. Funnily enough, they're both Cthulhu related. God, it is a theme, isn't it?
Have you just noticed this?
Yeah, I have. I have only just noticed it.
So the first step in recognising that you've got a problem is recognising you've got a problem. About my memory.
So Fantasy Flight Games announced 2 more games, well, 1 reprint and 1 new game in their Cthulhu Mythos range. So the new game was Arkham Horror, the card game. So cooperative card game based on Arkham Horror, and it's going to be one of their living card games. So what this means is, much like Netrunner, Magic the Gathering, that kind of game, you'll have a deck which represents your character, and you can customise that deck.
Okay.
And then come to the game with it.
Right.
So when you say represents your character, like you can change their maximum sanity and focus and things like that? Or?
I think those things remain constant, but you'll be using the deck during the game. So the deck will have things like, it's got 38 revolver in it, or it's got actions in it. I don't know too much about the exact details of the game, but it sounds very similar to the Lord of the Rings card game they did. And the Lord of the Rings card game was basically actions were in the deck. So it was like spells, attacks, snares, things like that were in this deck. And then you could pull characters out of the deck which joined your party as you played through. It sounds very similar to that. So it's going to expand quickly because it's a LCG, so it's going to be like 25 quid for the base set, 30 quid.
LCG?
Living card game.
Right, sorry.
It's what Fantasy Flight Games call their customisable card games.
It's a deck building game.
No. It's not a deck building game. Ooh. Deck building game is a game like Dominion, where you build the deck as you play the game. This is more like Magic, where you build the deck outside the game and then play with this deck. Right, deck construction.
So deck construction versus deck building.
Yeah. It's important because they're 2 completely different concepts, and they're so
which one's which?
So deck building is like Dominion, where you're building the deck as you play. So you start with a very minimal deck, and you'll buy cards from a central pool, and then you'll use those cards to buy more cards. There's collectible card games, sometimes called customizable card games, and now Fantasy Flight Games call them living card games. It doesn't help that there's various names for these things, but these generally tend to be like kind of tournament-heavy games, where you come into the tournament with a deck of cards and you're going to play that deck, and you can't alter that deck once the tournament starts. So think of it that way. So Magic is that. You'll go away. You guys have never played Magic, so you've never had that day of spreading all your cards over the carpet and going, right, I want that card and that card. Oh, that'll synergise well with that one. I'm going to need some mana to build that up.
Did you just use the word synergise?
I did use the word synergise.
Get out. You are hereby banished from this podcast.
Your own podcast.
If you combine that with the word leveraging, I will actually punch you in the face.
This isn't a management retreat.
It does sound like there's a degree of pain, experience, bitter cynicism in your voice there.
Magic, I never got fully into Magic. I played it quite a bit, but I never went overboard. I know of people who spent thousands of pounds on cards.
You got hooked and then you got out.
Yeah. Well, I was a student at the time, so I used to buy... There was a shop in Birmingham where you could just buy like 100 commons for £5 or something like that. So you can make decks, and they were fun to make decks on themes.
Commons being like the...
Commons being the ones that you buy a booster pack, when collectible card games, which is what Magic is. You can buy some starter decks, but generally you're going to buy buying cards, which are what they call random booster packs. There'll be 10 random cards in there, and I think you get like 8 common cards, 2 uncommon cards, and 1 rare.
That's 11, Steve.
Maths obviously not being my strong point, even though I have an engineering degree.
So definitely not your strong point.
Got calculators for that sort of thing.
But you get the gist. You're guaranteed a certain amount of common cards, a certain amount of uncommon, and a certain rare, and then every 1 in 10 packs is guaranteed to have like an epic rare card, so it encourages you to buy 10 cards. Yeah. That's the way that kind of card game was run for 10 years, 15 years. Fantasy Flight Games came along and said, right, we're going to change the system and make this thing called a living card game. In a living card game, we're not going to do random booster packs. In a pack, you will know exactly what cards are in that box. And you will have however many cards is the maximum you can add to a deck. So I think Netrunner, you can add 3 of any one card into a deck. So there's 3 of every card in there.
See, I prefer that idea because it involves actual brain and strategy rather than dumb luck.
Well, it just means that you're buying what you want rather than just throwing money in the hope that eventually you'll get lucky.
And what tends to happen actually with Magic is people just either buy like a massive deck box, like the trade boxes are like 80 quid, and rifle through them, or they'll just go, right, I want that card, and they'll buy it off a Magic card trader. So they might pay like £10 for one card, but they're doing the same kind of thing. But it ends up they spend a lot more money. Whereas the whole point of the living card game is, even though each one of these packs is costing £10 to £12 every month,
you know what you get.
You know what you're getting.
So I think I prefer that rather than, you can outwit somebody rather than outspend them.
Yeah.
Johnny Moneybags is more likely to win a game than...
Easy.
Is, Daddy, buy me some more cards.
Yeah. But the thing about Magic cards is a booster pack's quite cheap.
Yeah.
They're about, I think they're under a £5. So you kind of go, I like the Dice Masters that came out a couple of years back. Do you ever see them?
No.
The Marvel Dice Masters was the big one, and they did it for several different licenses. There's a Dungeons and Dragons Dice Masters.
Yes, I have. I've seen the D&D one. Yeah.
Again, starter set for that about 10 quid. Booster packs £1 each.
Don't let me anywhere near these things.
It's dangerous because I bought a couple.
I'll be sat in the corner.
So I bought a starter set. And I bought a couple of boosters, and what you tend to do is you buy something from the game shop, and you go, that's £17. Oh, I'll have 3 Dice Masters boosters then, please. Round up to 20 quid.
Yeah.
And at the moment you come out the shop and you go, oh my God, I've just fallen for it, haven't I?
Yeah. I've been absorbed.
And 3 lottery tickets as well while you're at it.
Yeah. That feels like that.
God, resistance is futile, isn't it?
So I think that's all we've got time for today. We've had a look at what's caught our eye from Gen Con. Obviously, we'd love to be there, but...
We're too poor.
We're too poor, yes.
Yeah.
Too poor to fly over. And to be fair, it sounds like a complete ball ache.
Where was it, actually? Was it in Vegas?
It's Indianapolis.
Oh! You could watch the 500.
Yeah. I think that's the only way I'd manage to convince anyone else to go, really.
What, watch a load of race cars go around in a circle?
Well, I think you'd have to do a bit of a tour. Well, I say it's a bit of a ball ache because you hear tales from other podcasters about the hotel bookings.
Is it a bit busy?
It's a bit busy. This is apparently one of the biggest conventions held in Indianapolis. And they do like a lottery system on the hotels. So I think you're guaranteed the opportunity to book a ticket, but they do this thing where you'll get a notice saying, right, you've got an hour slot now to go phone up the hotels and book it. So you watch Twitter the day this comes out, it's bonkers. especially because we're UK, so we're ahead of the US. So about lunchtime, you start seeing this popping up on Twitter going, oh my God, I found out my slot's in 10 hours, I'm not going to get a hotel. Or I've got a hotel, it's 20 blocks from the convention centre. And somebody else going, I'm next door!
I've won!
So yeah, it sounds, and especially for us, I think that if we were trying to book it, I think that'd be really, really difficult. I don't know how we'd do it. But it sounds bonkers. I mean, I haven't seen ones from this year, but I saw ones from a couple of years ago where one of the hotels, all the staff in the hotel dressed up in cosplay.
Wow.
So they were all dressed as Lord of the Rings characters.
That's pretty cool.
I thought it was pretty cool. There's a brewery not far from the convention centre who every year does a Gen Con themed ale. So
why the hell aren't we there?
I think we've been through this, actually.
No, all of those excuses are now null and void. They've got a brewery? Right, we'll go in next year.
Certainly wouldn't rule it out.
Anyway, so, as I said, we've gone through what we like. I think it's time to draw it to a close because I'm sure you're probably annoyed of hearing our horrible voices. Thank you very much for listening to our Gen Con special. I've been Steve from Polyhedron.collider.com.
I've been Andy, very silent.
I've been John, also a little quiet.
Thank you guys. Good night.
You heard it here first. I've got it now. You heard it here first, folks. We'll do that again. You heard it.
What the fuck is wrong with you people? You heard it here first. Oh my god.
Yes! Oh, the justice.